Hello students. By now you'd have all started your assignment on lesson planning. This clip is a set of essential reminders as you proceed with your paper. This lesson focuses on the importance and value of lesson planning and examines the basic elements of a lesson plan. A lesson plan is defined by one educational website as the instructor's roadmap of what students need to learn and how it will be done effectively during the class time. Lesson planning requires you to think through in advance what you're going to do, how you will do it, under what conditions you will carry it out, and what will be required to obtain the results. With this level of engagement, there is a high guarantee of lesson success. Why is planning and preparation important? Planning is one of the 7 management processes. As classroom managers, you are expected to plan. Planning defines where you want your class or group to go and how you intend to get there. Planning sets the focus and directs efforts towards specified goals. Failure to plan can retard the extent to which members of your class are to achieve the stated goals, learning objectives, or learning outcomes. Careful planning is a necessity in the teaching enterprise, and in discipline, demotivation, and learner frustration in your class can be attributed to poor planning and preparation. Why should you plan? The effective teacher is a designer and implementer. There must be a guide to what and the how. You may teach the same subject over and over, but each lesson has its own specificity and learners' profile changes. Regardless of the format, you need a system that makes wise decisions about the strategies and methodologies you will use to help students move systematically through learning outcomes. It does not matter if your lesson plan is an elaborate and impeccably typed outline indicating scope and sequence, or documentation of strategic plan for content delivery, or simple handwritten notes scratched on some paper or the back of an old envelope. What matters is that you have taken the time to think about your learners, your content, the order and delivery of that content, the creative ways in which you will deliver that content, and what form of assessment and evaluation will be used with that content. If you have done this, then you have engaged in good lesson plan. A lesson plan should allow for flexibility in delivery. It should allow for creativity in methodology. It should allow for adaptations. It should be content driven, but not so rigid so that it ignores the needs of the students. No matter how standardized a curriculum is, the instructor must take it and reshape or tailor it to fit the present audience, of course, without changing the desired learning outcomes. Remember, we teach people, not curriculum. Your lesson plan can be written in many different forms. I have already shared with you a few different templates. This is just one very traditional format. However, your lesson plan should have at least 80% of these basic elements: subject, topic, subtopic, duration, introduction, general objectives, goal or aim, specific objectives or learning outcomes, instructional materials, procedure, conclusion, and evaluation. Other terms often used in lesson planning are guided practice, independent practice, procedural subpoints, anticipatory set, statement of objectives, instructional input, lesson prerequisites, lesson introduction, modifications, accommodations, standards, enrichment activity, and culminating activity. Take a quick look at each section of the lesson plan, and I will share with you some key reminders. Subject. You must know your subject. Student must know you know your subject. You have to keep abreast with the changes in your subject area. Do not blame an outdated manual or text. It is your job to update and make content fresh and relevant. You must be aware of the new innovations, technologies, text, software, and hardware that will influence your subject area. Nothing allows you to lose your credibility more with your students or learners than if they feel that you do not know your subject or content area. As a teacher, it is your job to know. Topic and subtopic. What is the breakdown of your content? What are the topics and subtopics? Do you follow a certain sequence? How do you break up the whole into manageable pieces? This is very important in lesson planning. As a teacher, facilitator, or presenter, you must organize your content into manageable pieces in a sequence that makes sense to the learner. Duration or lesson time. Many people ignore this part of lesson planning. This is knowing what needs to be covered in the time given and how will the time be shared so as to maximize content grasp, ensure lesson objectives and activities are met, and students have gained from the experience. Oftentimes, we plan and decide what we can or cannot do with the allotted time. We should allow the allotted time to influence our planning. When I'm asked to present at a workshop or training session, one of my first questions is always, how much time do I have? I must be sure that what I need to deliver can be done in the time given. Planning a great lesson, then rushing to finish at the end takes away from the lesson. Here are a few reminders about time. 1. You have to plan how to use your time. 2. The effective teacher systematically and carefully plan for productive use of instructional time. 3. Do not use instructional time for planning and preparation, such as photocopying, grading, discipline course. These take away from instructional time. 4. Plan to do only what can be done in that time. 5. Make use of meaningful activities that can be done in that time. And 6. Be flexible to adjust to any extracurricular and school activities. Lesson Introduction. This is the part of the lesson where you must spark the students' interest and grab their immediate attention. It will require some level of planning, preparation, and creativity. Do something that they will talk about for the next week to their friends. Examples of these are video presentation, movies, documentary, having a guest speaker, photo slideshow, a photo album, artifacts and manipulatives, photos from a trip, home video of a trip, storytelling. Be creative and don't bore the students. There should be an entertainer in every teacher. The classroom is your stage. Learning outcomes. In this lesson plan, we'll be using the ABCD method. A. Audience. Who are your learners? B. Behavior. What do you expect them to be able to do? C. Condition. Under what circumstance or context will the learning occur? And D. Degree. How much will they accomplish in the behavior? How well the behavior needs to be performed and to what degree. When writing your objective, ask yourself a few things. What is the topic of the lesson? What do I want students to learn? What do I want them to understand and be able to do at the end of the class? What do I want them to take away from this particular lesson? What action will they need to perform to demonstrate that they indeed grasp the concept? If you want students to state 3 things they grasp from a concept, be clear on the action, the measurable action you want to be demonstrated. Is it 3 sentences, 3 paragraphs? Are they to write a letter, use a graphic organizer, What, how, be clear. And finally, on objectives, your objectives must be SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time sensitive. Whenever we mention writing objectives, there is always a need to mention Bloom's taxonomy. When we think of writing objectives and learning outcomes, one of the first things that comes to our mind is Bloom's taxonomy. Bloom's taxonomy divides educational objectives into three domains: affective, psychomotor, and cognitive. So you ask, why is it important? Why do I need to know the levels within the taxonomy? Knowing the levels will assist the instructor with proper planning of the right objectives and most effective activities. Knowing levels also allows the instructor to ensure that students are forced to think at higher levels than mere recall. Instructional materials. They should be creative, suitable, useful, effective, and appropriate. Don't do an overkill. Only use what you need to use to make the lesson creative and engaging. Procedures. This is a general plan of how you will proceed with the lesson. What will you do? What will the students do? What activities will be done and in what order? Conclusion. This is where we put it all together. Ensure that there's a systematic recap of what was covered in the lesson and clear up any questions, concerns to ensure understanding. The students should know that the lesson has come to an end. End the lesson properly. Evaluation. What will you use to test for understanding? Teacher-made tests, standardized tests, a battery of tests, quiz, project, portfolio, presentation, experiment, speech, drama presentation. Reflection. This is a stage at which the instructor is engaged in self-assessment and self-evaluation about the lesson. This should influence future lesson planning. You ask yourself, what were my strong areas? What are the areas that are needing improvement? What can I do better next time? What worked and what activities did my student enjoy? How effective was my methodology? And how relevant and effective were my instructional materials? I trust and hope that these reminders will help you as you engage in your lesson planning. Looking forward to some excellent lesson plans.